Several days have passed since the official coronation of Aegon VI, and we now find ourselves in King's Landing, where important noble figures from Westeros have gathered to engage in direct talks with the new king. The first to arrive was Bronn, who, along with his last loyal knights, entered the Red Keep demanding an explanation from Aegon regarding his dismissal as Master of Coin and the revocation of all his titles and lands. Aegon was clear and concise, stating that Bronn had shattered the peace of the realm and was incompetent in such duties, fit only to serve as a mercenary and wield a sword. Thus, the king gave Bronn two options. Either take the Black and defend the Wall as a new brother of the Night's Watch, or go into exile in Essos and never return to Westeros, under penalty of death as a traitor to the crown. Bronn had no choice but to accept the new king's conditions and choose exile, as at least there he could continue living a normal and luxurious life. And so, Bronn and his 20 knights boarded a ship and sailed towards Essos, specifically to Volantis. The second to arrive was Lord Lytton Hightower, accompanied by Lord Paxter Redwyne. Both had ended hostilities with the crown and intended to negotiate peace and bend the knee to the new king. Which is exactly what happened. They swore loyalty to the new monarch of Westeros, and with Bronn's exile, the requirements to end the rebellion were met. Aegon appointed Lord Lytton Hightower as the new Lord of the Reach, and granted him the castle of Highgarden, on the condition that all lands taken during the uprising be returned to their rightful owners, and that House Hightower pay for the damages caused by the war. Before departing, Lord Lytton requested a position on the king's small council, but Aegon refused for the moment, stating he wished to see whether House Arryn and House Baratheon would rebel as House Tully had, or bend the knee. With that, the Lords of the Reach left the capital to return to their respective home. We now turn to Storm's End, seat of House Baratheon, where all the better men had gathered to discuss the rise of a Targaryen to the throne of Westeros. Davos and Gendry aimed to swear loyalty to the new king, knowing Aegon to be honest, just, capable with a sword, experienced in ruling lands, and in possession of a dragon. The Lord of the Stormlands and his right hand were firmly decided, but their vassals argued, unwilling to support a Targaryen king after helping Robert Baratheon overthrow the Mad King. It made no sense to now back a descendant of the man who stole Robert's love and fought against him at the Trident. Amid the heated tension, Davos Seaworth took charge and delivered a powerful speech. In his wise words, he acknowledged that Aegon had the blood of the Mad King, and was indeed a Targaryen, but had not been raised as one. Aegon was raised in the cold north, under Eddard Stark's care, one of Robert's closest friends, who had fought at his side during the rebellion. Davos concluded that they were not speaking of just any Targaryen, but of a king who was half Targaryen and half Stark, raised with northern values. A king who had fought wildlings, the undead, and all manner of enemies. That was the king Westeros needed. Moved by those words, the bannermen calmed down and accepted the new monarch. Lord Gendry Baratheon then ordered a raven to be sent to King's Landing, declaring the Stormlands' loyalty to the crown and their new king. Next, we head to the Eyrie, seat of House Arryn, where Jon Royce debates with his lord, Robin Arryn, whether to pledge loyalty to the crown or rise in rebellion as House Tully had. After hours of deliberation, Robin decided to support his uncle Edmure Tully and seek vengeance for the death of his cousin Brandon Stark. He sent a raven to Riverrun to coordinate their defense and dispatched Jon Royce to the heart of the Vale to rally all available levies for the war. House Arryn had a strategic advantage. Their mountainous terrain made invasion nearly impossible. However, if Aegon decided to attack the Eyrie with Drogon, the outcome could be swift and brutal. Back in King's Landing, the news arrived. The new king welcomed House Baratheon's allegiance and the restoration of order in the Reach. Upon learning that House Arryn and Tully had risen in arms, Aegon dismissed Edmure Tully and Jon Royce from their roles as Master of Laws and Master of War, respectively, keeping Davos Seaworth as Master of Ships. He appointed Quentyn Martell as Master of Laws, Lord Lytton Hightower as Master of Coin, and Gendry Baratheon as Master of War. Tyrion Lannister had doubts about Aegon's choices, believing that Gendry and Quentyn lacked the experience for such roles, and distrusting Lytton Hightower after his actions during the rebellion. Nevertheless, he accepted the king's decision, and ravens were sent announcing the new council appointments. Aegon decided to retain Brienne of Tarth as Lord Commander of the King's Guard and Podrick Payne as a King's Guard, if both accepted after what had happened to Brandon. Podrick agreed, but Brienne felt she had failed the promise she made to Catelyn Stark. Aegon reassured her that she could not have saved Brandon and that her place was here. Tyrion then approached and apologized for what had happened to Brandon, explaining it was necessary to keep the peace and avoid great bloodshed. He added that Jaime would have understood and been proud of her. With tears in her eyes, Brienne finally accepted the post again and vowed that if her king were ever killed under her watch, she would take her own life. Soon after, trumpets blare through King's Landing as the banner of House Stark appeared in the capital. Sansa Stark and her escort had arrived to hear firsthand how Brandon Stark, heir to the independent Northern Kingdom, had died. The meeting between Aegon, Tyrion and Sansa was tense. Enraged by her brother's death, Sansa demanded the truth. After several minutes of explanation, she fixed her gaze on Tyrion, unmoving, and declared that the North would not go to war. It would not repeat history as Robb Stark had, but she warned that if anyone entered Northern territory without prior warning or permission, they would be executed immediately. Turning to Aegon, she stated that the North would remain independent until her dying breath, and finished it by telling Aegon that he meant nothing to her anymore. With that, Sansa and her escort left the capital, and the king, wounded by the rejection, chose to leave the North in peace and focus instead on quelling the rebellions of House Arryn, Tully and Greyjoy, to begin a new era of stability and prosperity. Finally, we move to Braavos, where Arya Stark, now docking with her ship, felt a wave of nostalgia upon stepping into familiar ground. Without a word, she made her way to the place where she had been trained as an assassin and learned to survive. Upon arrival, she found the doors wide open, as if someone or something were waiting for her. Upon entering, the doors closed behind her, and darkness enveloped her. Suddenly, several candles lit, revealing a dark figure wearing a black hooded cloak. Two words echoed: Valar Morghulis. Arya knew the response: Valar Dohaeris. Instantly, the candles went out, and in the blink of an eye, someone pushed Arya to the floor. Dazed, she saw a hand reach out to help her. She took it, and as she rose, the candles relit, revealing a familiar face, Jaqen H'ghar. With a gaze both cunning and intimidating, he seemed surprised to see Arya return. Without speaking, he turned and walked towards a large door that suddenly opened, revealing a glowing blue light inside. What was that light? And what did Jaqen want to show Arya? War would soon strike the Riverlands and the mountains once more, and secrets and shadows would awaken in Braavos.